Animal Crossing New Leaf revolves around the clock. When the shops open, that's because of the clock. Villagers sleep, it's bedtime on the clock. Moths appear, the clock. So, what happens if I were to bend the rules in my favor? Maybe I don't have the time to get on the game early to sell my fruit at retail or find Joan to buy turnips. I'll adjust the clock, right? Before loading into town, there are some options to fiddle with the date and time. I'll go back in time by talking to Isabelle. Well, this isn't inherently bad. I can catch up on some activities from earlier, and I have my progress from when I played earlier in the night. There doesn't seem to be any major consequences, except for my turnips. Yeah, turnips instantly turn rotten when fiddling with the game clock. Alright, how about instead of asking Isabelle to change the time, I'll go to the system settings. If I have some new turnips and miss the morning prices, I can flick the clock back a few hours and sell from there. Well, all my turnips are rotten. Okay, so maybe going back in time isn't the best idea. The game is probably able to tell when I saved last, and adjusting the clock directly in-game is just an omen for something bad to happen. Instead of going backwards in time, I should try going forwards with system settings. Events in the future haven't happened yet, so the game shouldn't assume anything otherwise. It'd be similar to passing time in real life. After returning with a new set of turnips and adjusting the clock so I can sell them, time tainted. Somehow the game knows about the clock even when the cartridge isn't in the system. What's going on here? Well, when the 3DS system was first powered on, a timer was started. This is called the real-time clock, or RTC for short. The system itself is constantly ticking away from 0, adding to this value every tick. When the user sets the time in system settings, what you view is actually the result of an offset from the raw RTC value. You've essentially told the system to perform an addition operation to the raw RTC, giving the correct date and time. During normal use, the offset never changes. Only the raw RTC does as it ticks away. Whatever the offset value gets set to, the system remembers and saves it to storage. Games like Animal Crossing New Leaf will make note of what your offset is. When you load a save game, it checks to see if the offset value is the same as it was last time. If it's the same, you're good to go. In regular play, the only time it would change is if you adjusted it either backwards or forwards in system settings. This can be annoying for players who observe daylight savings. The 3DS clock isn't synced to the internet, so users have to manually fall back or spring the clock ahead, causing turnips to go rotten if you don't plan ahead. If you were to have Isabelle adjust the in-game clock, it creates an offset from your offset. It's very easy for the game to detect when the clock changes, since it only happens while it's running the game. There isn't much of a reason to use this offset unless you only want to change the time for Animal Crossing without leaving the game. Otherwise, it makes it difficult to resync with your 3DS's time with complete accuracy. Animal Crossing New Leaf isn't the only game affected by this time conundrum. Tomodachi Life and Pokemon Sun, just to name a couple more, are also paying attention to what the time offset is on your system, and will lock you out of certain progression if it doesn't line up quite right. Tomodachi Life will freeze shop rotations, seasonal items will disappear, and you can't obtain any donations for a little bit. Pokemon Sun and Moon will reset the Pokepelago berries and lock you out of Festival Plaza shops. There are other cases where the game might see a different offset. If you play across multiple systems with one cartridge, each system has their own offset, meaning turnips are bound for the rubbish. If you've left your 3DS alone for a very long time, only to find that the battery is kaput, charging it and turning it back on, you might find that the clock was reset. In cases where the battery was removed, there's a good chance the clock also might be incorrect. In both cases, this forces the user to alter the offset to get back on track, messing with progress. I always found it tricky buying turnips only to see that they withered away when I played on different systems. This led me not to get involved in the turnip market at all. The next entry, New Horizons, wasn't as strict about time traveling, so it's possible to avoid having turnips rot when going forward in time. The game has less penalties for time travel, and the Switch system clock can sync with the internet, making time trouble far less of a worry. The offset check is put in place to prevent players from progressing too quickly, but in certain cases it can become an annoyance if you aren't aware of the rules, or legitimately need to fix the time. Either way, make sure that you're prepared before you cause a time paradox where weeds take over the land and rotten turnips flood the dumpster.